Daniel Sports Central will be giving you guys my Week 11 college football bowl projections for the 2022 season. We just made it through the first weekend of November, and so today I'll be giving you guys my updated bowl projections as we head into the second week of the final month of the regular season. So that said, let's get started looking at the Bahamas Bowl first. We got Western Kentucky and Eastern Michigan. Cure Bowl, we got Ohio and Georgia State. Fenway Bowl, we got Miami and Memphis. We got the Hurricanes landing as pretty much the last team in out of the ACC with 6 wins. And I mean, Miami's a tough team to predict. That team has been very inconsistent this season, but I still have got the Hurricanes getting into a bowl game, currently projected for 6 wins, taking on a decent Memphis team. New Mexico Bowl, we got Air Force and North Texas. LA Bowl, we got Boise State and Washington State. I got the Cougars getting in with 7 wins on the season. And quite honestly, the Pac-12 is far and away the easiest conference to predict out of the Power 5. I've had the same 7 teams in the bowls like in the past 4 weeks. I mean, honestly, the toughest thing to predict at this point in the Pac-12 is who you think is going to win. I mean, Oregon is the favorite to win the Pac-12 right now, you could say, even though, I mean, USC and UCLA and Utah are not far behind. But I got Washington State in to take on Boise State in the LA Bowl. Lending Tree Bowl, we got Middle Tennessee and Southern Miss. Las Vegas Bowl, we got Oregon State and Missouri. I've actually got Missouri getting into bowl season as a 5-win team. This is something that does happen most bowl seasons, where we see a few or a couple of 5-win teams get into bowl season. And in this situation, I've got the Tigers getting in as a 5-win team. And I've actually got 2 Power 5 teams getting into bowl season with 5 wins. We'll get into the other one in just a little bit. But I've got Missouri getting in there. I think if they can get up to 5 wins and, I mean, be competitive, that's a team that definitely could be in contention still. And I've got them taking on Oregon State. Well, I've got projected for 8. And then we got the Frisco Bowl. I got Fresno State and Troy in that one. Myrtle Beach Bowl, we got App State and Iowa. I've got the Hawkeyes projected for 6 wins and taking on App State. Their Idaho Potato Bowl, we got Ball State and Wyoming. Boca Raton Bowl, we got Houston and Georgia Southern. And then the New Orleans Bowl, we got UTSA and Coastal Carolina. Moving on, we got the Armed Forces Bowl, SMU and BYU. BYU is a team that, I mean, they've really disappointed in the past few weeks, but I still have them getting to a bowl game to take on SMU. Independence Bowl, we got East Carolina and Army. Gasparilla Bowl, we got Louisville and Buffalo. I've got the Cardinals getting up to 6 wins to take on Buffalo. Hawaii Bowl, we got San Diego State and Rice. Quick Lane Bowl, we got Maryland and Miami, Ohio. I've got the Terps projected for 7 wins out of the Big Ten. And this will put them in one of the lower grade Big Ten bowl games. I've got 3 teams projected for 7 wins as well out of the Big Ten. And it just so happens that Maryland is the last team out of those 7-win teams. And then Camellia Bowl, we got Liberty and South Alabama. First Responder Bowl, we got Texas Tech and UNLV. Here's your other 5-win team that I've got projected for bowl season. That is Texas Tech. It could also be Iowa State. I've got Iowa State also projected for 5, but looks like Texas Tech could potentially get that bid. And so I'm gonna go with the Red Raiders to get into the First Responder Bowl to take on UNLV. Birmingham Bowl, we got Michigan State flexing in for an ACC/SEC team to take on Cincinnati. Michigan State, I've got projected for 6 wins now. Obviously, their huge win over Illinois has brought them back into the bowl picture. Last week, I did not have the Spartans projected to make a bowl game, but this week I do. Then you got the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, Baylor and Purdue. Purdue, I got projected for 7 wins to take on Baylor, who I've got projected for 6. Military Bowl, we got Duke and UCF. Duke, I've got projected for 7 wins now. That's been one of the surprise teams in the ACC this season. And then Liberty Bowl, we got Kansas and Arkansas. I got the Jayhawks up to 7. And Arkansas, I got them at 6. And that would be a pretty intriguing matchup. You got Arkansas, who's arguably disappointed a bit this season, and Kansas. That would be their first bowl game, and this will be their first bowl season where they're involved since like 2008 or 2009. It's been a long time for the Jayhawks. And then Holiday Bowl, we got Pittsburgh and Utah. I got the Utes up to 9 wins in the Pac-12, pretty much finishing 4th in the conference, taking on Pitt, who I've got projected for 7. Moving on, we got the Texas Bowl, Oklahoma State and Florida. Oklahoma State has really fallen off the past few weeks. I got them projected for 8 wins and almost 5th in the Big 12 now. I do have Oklahoma now projected to beat the Cowboys later on this season, but the Cowboys still get to a halfway decent bowl game to take on Florida, who I've got projected for 8. Pinstripe Bowl, we got Florida State and Wisconsin. Florida State's been looking pretty good recently, but I've still got them projected for 7 wins to take on Wisconsin, who I've got projected for 7 as well. Cheez-It Bowl, we got Wake Forest and Oklahoma. Wake Forest is a team that I've got projected for 8. And meanwhile, Oklahoma, I got projected for also 8, but with the tiebreaker over Oklahoma State. Alamo Bowl, we got Kansas State and UCLA. Alamo Bowl is pretty much your, or oftentimes your Big 12 and Pac-12 runner-ups, but a little bit different this season. We got Kansas State pretty much as the 3rd place team in the Big 12 at 9 wins, taking on UCLA, who is also the 3rd place team in their conference at 10 wins. That would be obviously a great matchup there. Duke's Mayo Bowl, we got Illinois and NC State. I got the Fighting Illini finishing out pretty much, you could say, 4th in the Big Ten, despite them currently being projected to win the Big Ten West, for me at least. I've got Penn State and obviously Ohio State and Michigan currently ahead of Illinois, but I've got the Fighting Illini finishing out with a 9-4 record and losing in the Big Ten title game. And NC State, got them projected for 9 wins and pretty much 3rd place in the ACC. Sun Bowl, we got Syracuse and Washington. The Orange have fallen apart a little bit over the past few weeks, but I do have them still projected for 7 wins to take on Washington, who I've got projected for 9. Gator Bowl, we got Notre Dame flexing in for a Big Ten team there to take on South Carolina, who I've got projected for, South Carolina. I've got them at 6 right now for South Carolina to take on Notre Dame. And honestly, Notre Dame could honestly move up the way that they've been playing the past couple of weeks. We'll see what happens and adjust accordingly. Arizona Bowl, we got San Jose State and Toledo, and then Music City Bowl, Minnesota and Mississippi State. I've got the Gophers currently projected for 8 wins and pretty much 2nd place in the Big Ten West to take on Mississippi State, who I've got projected for 7 out of the SEC. Now, moving on to some of your bigger bowl games here, we got the Citrus Bowl, which is going to be Kentucky and Penn State. I got Penn State projected for 10 wins and pretty much to win out here, and to take on Kentucky, who I've got projected for 8. And this could also be Florida or Ole Miss. It's honestly a trio of, it could be Ole Miss, Kentucky, or Florida in these 2 bowl games between Citrus and the ReliaQuest Bowl, which is up next. We got Ole Miss in this one, even though Ole Miss could definitely be put in the other one as well. It just is a matter of where they're selected. But I got Ole Miss in this one to take on North Carolina. I've got projected as the ACC runner-up at 11-2. There's a chance that North Carolina could receive an at-large bid. I've got the Tar Heels finishing out strong here, getting up to 11 wins. But in the end, I've got 2 other teams, and we'll get into those in just a little bit, making the near 6 at-large bids instead. And moving on to the Orange Bowl, we got Clemson and Alabama. This is a familiar matchup, but it's not in the college football playoff. I got Clemson and Alabama both missing the playoff. Alabama got projected for a 10-2 record to win out, and I've got them taking on Clemson, who I've got projected as a 12-1 ACC champion. So if North Carolina were to beat Clemson in the ACC championship, which is a possibility, obviously you'd have North Carolina in this position, but as of right now, I got Clemson here to take on Alabama in the Orange Bowl. And then Sugar Bowl, we got Texas and LSU. We got LSU being a team I got projected for 10 wins out of the SEC, and also as the SEC runner-up to take on Texas, I've got projected as the Big 12 champion. I'm projecting the Longhorns to win the Big 12 right now. I've got them beating TCU this weekend and getting to the Big 12 title game to take down probably TCU again. Even though the Horned Frogs, you never know, they could win it in the Big 12 title game and still get to the near 6. But I do have Texas winning this weekend no matter what, which would knock TCU out of college football playoff contention pretty much. And this would be obviously a great matchup. LSU, who's been on fire recently. And then the Rose Bowl, we got Michigan and USC here. I got Michigan as the 2nd place team in the Big Ten at 11-1. Their one loss being to Ohio State. And I've got them taking on USC, who is the Pac-12 runner-up at 11-2. Cotton Bowl, we got TCU and Tulane. I've now got Tulane getting the at-large bid for the group of 5 instead of Cincinnati, who it's been for the past 5 weeks. I mean, Tulane's playing really well right now, and they've got a big matchup this weekend against UCF, and we're going to find out a lot about Tulane in that one. But I've got them taking on TCU. I got projected as an 11-2 Big 12 runner-up as of right now. The Horned Frogs, definitely a team that still is in contention for the college football playoff, but I do think this team takes a loss or two down the stretch, which would prevent them from getting to the college football playoff in the end. But moving on now to your college football playoff semifinals, we got a rematch of Georgia and Oregon in the Peach Bowl. This would be quite a game here for Oregon. Obviously, Oregon's one loss of the season was a brutal loss to Georgia back in week 1. And that's the one thing that's keeping the Ducks right now from being in the top 2, top 3 is that one loss. Otherwise, Oregon is an undefeated team right now, and they're playing really well. They're one of the hottest teams in the nation and playing as well as anybody, I'd say, right now. So the Ducks taking on Georgia again. Potentially this would be a closer game. Maybe Oregon goes and pulls off the upset of the season here. If they could knock off Georgia, this would be, I would think, a really incredible matchup if it were to happen again. And honestly, it's a rematch that I'd really look forward to. Usually I don't look forward to rematches very much, but this would be a game where I would definitely be excited for this one. Now, I got the Bulldogs as a 13-0 SEC champion. They are far and away who I think to be the best team in the country now that they just beat Tennessee by a couple of touchdowns just last week. And the other semifinal, I've had the same matchup for like 3 weeks now, but it's going to be Ohio State and Tennessee. I got the Buckeyes as a 13-0 Big Ten champion to take on Tennessee, who I got projected as an 11-1, pretty much SEC East runner-up behind Georgia. But I still think Tennessee, especially if TCU takes a loss, and which I do have projecting. Once again, I do have TCU losing, and obviously LSU losing in the SEC. Either way, I don't even know if LSU can get past Tennessee, because we saw Tennessee be dominant over LSU already this season. They beat them like 40-13. So, I mean, LSU is a 2-loss team. It's going to be really tough for them to get into the playoff with that considered. But I do think Tennessee is a team that, if they can win out here, they've got a really good chance to still be in the playoff, just because their resume is still that strong. But that said, that's going to wrap it up for my Week 11 Bowl projections. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on these projections, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more. From All Sports Central, catch you on the next one.